Hey friends, it's Stephanie here with the Only God podcast, sharing stories only God could write. And today it's just me on the podcast. And, my goal would be to also lead you on a journey of my life because I feel like God has shown up in so many ways, and I want to continue to challenge and encourage you to write down your story and, pinpoint all the ways that God showed up and worked in the good and the hard times of your life. So, I know on one of the episodes I talked about like running in college, and I gotta say, like, college was really difficult for me. I struggled academically, and like, I'll just share with you right now. At the time, I didn't know it, but I found out when I was 39, when I was getting ready to release my first book, that I was dyslexic. So I went all through, elementary school, high school, and college as a dyslexic, but not knowing it. And I think for me, people have often asked me, actually, I had a dyslexia consultant and my friend Joellen, and like asked me, do I wish I would have known and not found out so late in life? And honestly, if I had to do it all over again, I think I would choose not to know. And here's the reason why is I think so many times in Zach, if you listen to the episode with Zach Lloyd, that will be coming out or may already be out, depending on how we release these, is like a lot of times the labels become our identity and it limits us of doing what God has called us to do. So if you look at me, I still graduated college, even though I was dyslexic and didn't know it. Yes, it was very hard. I can remember at times like studying 20 hours for a test and like barely squeaking by with a passing grade. And my friends are studying, like a couple of hours, 4 hours. And I'm like, what the heck's wrong with me? Um, and even when I was talking to Joellen, it was like she told me, and it made so much sense of like, you've made so many detours in your life so you could learn to navigate a life. So one of the simple ones, if you're watching, is I, as a dyslexic, I struggle with left and right. And I was so excited when I got married because my wedding rings are on my left hand. And so the detour that I do is if somebody asks me to turn left or turn right, is I literally have to think about, where's my wedding rings? Okay, my wedding rings are here. That's my left side. And I would always like, my chiropractor used to joke, he'd say, lay on your left side. And then he'd say, no, your other left side. Um, and I think though it taught me a lot about like perseverance and determination and not giving up, which are qualities that I need as a writer and an entrepreneur and all the things that God has called me to do. I feel like I've built those muscles up because I wasn't able to use my learning disability as an excuse, to say, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm dyslexic. And it was just like, nope, I don't know what's going on. So I'm just going to have to figure this out. And I didn't mean to tell this today, but it's like, I guess this is where the Lord's leading. And I'll come back to the story I was going to tell, maybe on another episode, is even the way I found out how I was dyslexic, I feel like is an only God story. And maybe I'll have Joellen on sometime because even she and I have a really cool, like, only God story connection. And so for her to be in my life and her son, she had found out he was dyslexic and she became a dyslexic consultant. And I was her coach and we were working together. But she wasn't the one that diagnosed me. I was watching a video, an interview with Bryce Howard. Um, I know her from The Help. I'm sure she's been in a lot of other things, but Marie Forleo was interviewing her. And Bryce talks about, like, she just starts mentioning some of what I mean, maybe it's like symptoms or something. And then she like shares of how she has a learning disability. And as she's going through like all these symptoms, I'm literally sitting there nodding my head like, this is me. Oh, like that's me. Like it was just this like aha moment as she kept going. So I actually text my friend Joelle and I'm like, I think I'm dyslexic. We kind of have this debate and she said, next time we're together, like she gave me a writing test and then she's like, oh my gosh, like you're dyslexic. And so anyways, I share that is because I felt like it was a gift that I didn't find out until I was 39 before publishing my first book. But I feel like it was only God that could have orchestrated one, me listening to that interview, two, me having Joellen, who had not been in my life very long, to go like, hey, can you verify this? Because I think if Joellen hadn't been in my life, I wouldn't have had anybody to ask or go to, especially as an adult. I mean, most of the time, they're dyslexia consultants, I feel like, are dealing with children. And there are some now that deal with adults since I kind of been in this space a little bit. But I also think, too, is, I was 6 months from publishing my first book, The Giving Challenge. And I don't think I would have written a book if I would have known I was dyslexic. Like I would have used an excuse because all through, high school, college, it was like, I am not a good writer, I'm not good with grammar, I'm not good with spelling. Like I could have used all those excuses, but I felt so strongly that the Lord was calling me to write this book and that he had so much for me if I could just get the book out and done. And it was a big struggle. I cried a lot throughout that, but it's like this only God moment when I found out I was dyslexic. I was like, oh, okay, now a lot of things make sense. I understand why I'm struggling, but I still know this is what God's calling me to do. And so the calling that God has on your life, a lot of times isn't going to make sense. A lot of times isn't going to be what your strengths are. And then that's how we have to like lean on God each and every day and go, okay, I don't trust myself with like knowing how to do this, write a book, but I trust you. I know you're calling me to do this. And it's why here today, September 23rd of 2025, I've now published 10 books and I've published a lot of other people's books through Giving Gal Press, my press company. And so I think that's important of why we don't put labels on ourselves, why we don't let the world put labels on ourselves, because then it doesn't prevent God from doing what he's called us to do, but I think it prevents us from doing what God has called us to do. So not the story I meant to share today, but I feel like that's what I was supposed to share. And so I hope you enjoyed this Only God story and me, your host, Stephanie, sharing only stories that God could write. Hey friends, thank you for joining me today on the Only God podcast. I hope today's story encouraged your faith and reminded you that God is still writing our stories each and every day. If you were inspired by this episode, please share, subscribe, and tell a friend. And to stay connected with me and find out about all my books and resources and events, go to shineforwardcreative.com. Have a fabulous day.